TF2 is commonly praised for a lot of things, one of these things being movement. And at first, it's evident that people would like it, as rocket jumping is one of the best movement mechanics in any video game. However, this is a movement mechanic, not the entire movement system. And I feel there's a lot more to talk about TF2 than just one specific mechanic for one class. In fact, the entire movement system, and even in the less flashy ways, is simply well crafted and enhances the other aspects of the game. So instead of just jumping over to the most exciting parts of the game, we need to take the necessary steps to properly demonstrate why TF2's movement is amazing. And speaking of necessary steps, let's begin with walking. The most fundamental parts of movement, like walking and jumping, are often overlooked when talking about a game, but it's still important to understand the finer details, as that's what often separates good games from great games. With TF2, the base movement is, well, basic. In simple WASD movement with a slight movement penalty when walking backwards. There's a simple jump with only the weird thing about being crouch jumping, and that's about it. There's no bells and whistles, no fancy animations, no clamber or anything of the sort, and it works well, and that's the most important part. TF2's movement works well, as with the lack of animations like sprint or clamber, combat and movement are perfectly interwoven. The strafe is also pretty fast with some delay so the aiming doesn't feel slippery, which makes it so you can dodge attacks, but you can still slightly predict the enemy's next movements. Combine this with the fact that every gun in the game has no movement inaccuracy and the high time to kill in the game, and the gunfights feel less like a diddly staring contest and more like an action movie fight scene, with both players trying to juke the other out. It goes to the point that with enough skill, you can manage to trick an enemy player into revealing their back and using that opportunity to get a well-earned backstab. Movement matters in most interactions. Yes, I stole that one from Lazy Purple. And this is compounded even more with the different effective ranges of the weapons. Something else to note is like with the slower walking backwards speed, it gives the player a choice when being chased out. They can either go at the same speed but without being able to fight back, or they can fight back but they're not going to get away as easily. But this is all boring ground movement. How about we look at how air traversal works in TF2? Like I said earlier, TF2 has a very basic jump. It doesn't go too high up, but isn't completely useless either. You can get to higher ledges with it, and sometimes get to some strange places, but it's also good for a risky juke in the middle of a fight. There's no movement inaccuracy, meaning it's a viable option for dodges, but your movement will become predictable if it doesn't work out, as you're put into a predictable jump arc. There's another way you could utilize jumping during a fight other than repositioning or dodges, but we'll get to that later. So that's what air movement then, huh? Basic, but gets the job done. First of all, we haven't really begun to touch on all the advanced movement of the game, but that's for later. Secondly, there's one more universal movement mechanic in air strafing. Normally, you can't redirect your course in midair, but if you hold a strafe key while moving your mouse in the same direction, it can redirect your movement a bit in the same direction you want to go. This is incredibly useful, as you can completely alter your jump arc and cause some dodges that weren't possible before. Not only that, it's useful for transversal, as with how the map geometry of most maps have some weird ledges, meaning you can get to some places that will have everyone scratching your head wondering what kind of wizardry you used to get there. Finally, it can be used with other advanced techniques to further your air control and get to places faster. However, all this air movement means nothing with an outlet to get you to air faster, which leads us to the moment we've all been waiting for. That's right, it's finally time to get to knockback. Something that's unique about TF2 is that every single weapon in the game deals knockback to some extent, whether it be almost insignificant or sending the other player flying. This serves the purpose of adding additional feedback to a weapon, as there's additional impact to every weapon now. It also adds a layer of soft crowd control to every weapon to make sure that the advanced movement techniques don't become too oppressive, which we'll get to after this section is done. Heavies won't be as nearly as strong as countering flying opponents if his minigun didn't fire so many bullets and therefore stop airborne enemies in their tracks. This also adds another layer to the dodge gamble, as you have the chance of potentially getting your privilege to move completely revoked if you mess it up badly, especially if it gets explosive classes. However, If you time your jump right when getting hit, you can also just get out of a bad situation by just flying out of there. This is known as knockback surfing, and is undeniably one of the coolest things in the game that's already filled to the brim with cool stuff. This adds even more layers to certain matchups. As if you're fighting a soldier, you can either stay grounded and have more control of your movement, jump to try to fully dodge an attack or potentially escape, but this option led to you getting juggled. However, it's not just enemies that can inflict knockback on you. With certain weapons that deal self-damage and others that don't even need that, you can fire the surface to propel yourself in the opposite direction at high speeds. That's right, it's the moment we've been waiting for. Now is the time to talk about the greatest movement mechanic ever made. Blast jumping is an absolutely genius movement mechanic for many reasons. The first is simply how versatile it is. As you get to high ground, goes to the front line faster, get to fights from unexpected angles, escape from danger, show the opponent how much better you are than them, and evade the IRS all by a simple trick. Shoot the ground and crouch jump at the same time. This, of course, costs you some health and ammo, but it's well worth it when done at the right time and at the right place. That's another thing I like about blast jumping, the fact that it costs something. Unlike in other games where most movement techniques cost a cooldown at most, and you can just do for free for most of the time, in TF2, you are sacrificing two of the most important resources in the game. That means if you're too low, you can't just get out of a situation for free, because guess what? You'll end up blowing yourself up. And if you don't have any ammo, guess what? You don't have any rocket to shoot. Speaking of improper usage of rocket jumping, you need to learn to use it in the first place. It doesn't just end with a basic jump. There's plenty to master, from basic wall jumps to more advanced pogos. Fully learning every technique will take hours and hours of practice, which creates a skill ceiling and extends the lifespan of a game, which is a topic I might cover in the future. Comment down below if you're interested. There's also the balancing between the two classes that primarily utilize this mechanic that's interesting. As well as soldier has a more readily available and less damaging rocket jump, it can be overall chained better. Dylan's blast jumps go much further. You can potentially boost yourself mid-air with another sticky. Did I mention already there's an incredibly high skill ceiling? One final thing to note is that there are multiple items that bolster your mechanics even more, like the jumper weapons in the Market Garner, which continues to encourage to learn these mechanics. There are other forms of knockback-based movement in this game, but it's mostly a lesser version of what I've just covered. It's still cool though. But if you're looking for the pinnacle of speed in TF2, the most fluid movement in the game, then look no further than the Scout. The Scout is a class that is most defined by his mobility, not only because he needs it to survive, but also due to how powerful it is. The Scout is not just significantly faster than every other class in the game, but he also has a double jump, which is way more versatile than it lets on. Sure, it lets you get to higher places in high places from further differences like you would expect, but it can also redirect your movement mid-air, making the Scout even harder to hit. This would be good on any other class, but with Scout speed, it's not so much of a double jump and more like an air dash with some vertical momentum. Combine this with different jump timings and usage of the environment to get yourself on a higher spot mid-battle. And great Scouts can use their movement to become nearly unkillable, which is a feeling you can't really get from any other class or in any other game. Another main use of the Scout's double jump is general momentum canceling, or it be to simply negate fall damage or to escape a soldier combo. It's a small thing, but it contributes greatly to how good the Scout feels to move with. Did I mention how just fast he is? The sheer speed he has makes a double jump even stronger for dodges and map traversal, making you sometimes able to dodge the pyro's flame, which is notorious for being super easy to aim. Fighting as a Scout is a test of how well you can dodge and weave in and out of your most effective range while still managing to reduce damage to a minimum, as one wrong move will often spell your death. Combined with a weapon, the Scouter Gun, you have an incredibly satisfying risk-reward system that makes it incredibly exhilarating to play. The best part is, you have 8 other slower classes in the game, so you get burnt out by its heavy mechanic-focused gameplay. Just switch to another class for a bit. Manage to take the best part of the typical movement shooter gameplay, also sidestepping the biggest pitfall to a movement shooter's longevity. At this point, We've covered most of the main points on why TF2's general movement and more flashy movement is great, but we still have a few loose ends to cover. One of these loose ends that TF2 doesn't solely rely on physics-based movement, but has a few cooldowns that can be used for movement as well. The best example of this are Downite shields, as they are so useful that an entire playstyle is founded upon them. The shields fully replace a secondary to gain some resistances and a charge, which powers up your melee to get a guaranteed one-hit kill. Now you know my stance on free mobility, so why do I like Devilman's shields but don't really like anything else? For one, the mobility can be countered in different ways. I think our Devilman's turning arc is incredibly predictable, sort of predictable, or easily countered by simply shooting him, depending on the shield. Secondly, there is actual depth to be gleaned from it, as there's multiple different ways you can use and abuse map geometry to send yourself flying. There is also the Furl Thruster, but let's be real, trying to use this thing while the enemy can still see you is a death wish, as it takes the lifespan of Queen Elizabeth to deploy it, an additional delay before you go anywhere, and the jump arc is super predictable, so enjoy getting air shot. It's only really used for ambushes and map traversal, so most people just end up using the detonator instead. One last thing I'd like to cover is that a lot of TF2's movement can also come down to certain map elements. As we hit a ramp with enough speed and at the right angle, you surf up the ramp while carrying your previous momentum. There is also regular surfing to consider because this is a source game, but that's not going to be a factor a lot of the time. And I think that's it. There might be something else even more minuscule to cover, but let's review everything we've covered and see what makes TF2's movement work so well. When you put all the pieces together, TF2's movement is great because of how it manages to encourage movement during combat without making it overwhelming. The simple ground movement makes dodging essential during combat, with the jump being good enough for mid-combat traversal and different ways to evade an enemy. Advanced movement is powerful, but it's balanced out by the challenge and universal knockback, making sure it both takes skill to use and that someone who solely relies on movement won't last too long. The Scout's class design? Simply brilliant. There's more I could go into on how TF2 capitalizes on this amazing movement system with the map design, but that's another video topic entirely. Thanks for watching, tell me what you think, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.